Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Channel X, the only show on Thursdays that starts the weekend early. I am your host, TomDog247. As always, I'm Tom Dog all day and Tom Dog all night. Ooh, baby, alright. So, you're looking at the background, you read the description. Yes, we got a lot of Spider-Man news to be talking about here in this episode. And I did not expect it to be this much Spider-Man news. Well, technically, Spider-Man news. Technically. Well, yeah, there's going to be a lot. In one segment, there's not going to be that much Spider-Man news, even though it has a relation to it. Background knows exactly why. But before we get into that, we're going to do the shout-outs and the plugs and everything else that we always do each and every week that everyone's grown to tolerate. Sorry. But we're going to try to make this as fun as possible because I know with this shocking revelations coming on this week, it's a big discussion. It really is a really big discussion, and we need to talk about it because, it's live and we have to, So yeah, Absolute Talk with Josh Albert. Listen to his podcast. It's awesome. You'll love it just as much as I do. Check it out each and every week on iTunes. You can download the Podbean app. You can check. I think you can go on Spotify too. Josh, if you're watching, let me know. You can also, you can download the Podbean app, or you can check out the website at absolutetalk.podbean.com. There's a lot. There's links to check it out if you don't want to listen to it on that website. You can give you the direct links to where you need to go, and it's perfect. You definitely need to do. Definitely worth checking out. It's a really good podcast. You'll love it just as much as I do. Again, that's Absolute Talk with Josh Albert. How's it going, brother? So, keep up the good work. So, also shout out to Gamer Geeks over on Facebook, as well as Gaming Pros and Hobby Life on Facebook. Check them out. We always have a good time, and you will too if you check them out. Tell them Tom Dog sent you. My good friend Mel, she has her YouTube channel up and running as well. And I forgot to put that up. I forgot to get it up there and everything. So, and I apologize. I'm rushing everything because I was so focused. I'm basically just so focused on. I was basically focusing on the topic at hand tonight that I completely forgot to put in. The plug for my good friend Mel. It's Mel Plays, I believe. I'm sorry. She can kill me later. Damn. I know what to do. This is something I should have done. Then out the search. There we go. Yeah, Melly Plays. Oops. Melly Melly Playful. So yeah, that's the her YouTube channel. There we go. Melly Playful. Definitely worth checking out. She does a phenomenal job on there. I have yet to do a crossover with her on a game. So, but it'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, go ahead, check her out. It's Melly Playful, and she also has some merch there. I don't know if she wants me to do it, but I'll do it anyways. I'll plug it. Melly Playful tees and more on teespring.com. So definitely worth checking out. T-shirts look amazing. They really do. So a little shout out for her, as well as always a good shout out as always to my good friend Marissa. How you doing? Hope you have a great weekend. And the plugs, not the hair plugs. We all know I don't need them. Funko.com. If you have not yet subscribed to their boxes, definitely do so. They're worth checking out because basically that's pretty much the only subscription boxes that there are left. In light of what I talked about last week. So yeah. Disney Treasures, Marvel Collector, DC Legion of Collectors, and Star Wars Smuggler's Bounty. Definitely worth checking out. You'll love it just as much as I do, and they're worth every penny. So go ahead, check it out. Funko.com. Give you all the necessary requirements of where you need to go, and you'll love it just as much as I do. So, and of course, this episode is brought to you by M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Trade in your old video games and consoles. From retro video games, accessories, and systems, you can also trade in your DVD box sets and Blu-rays. You can also trade in your sports cards and novelty items, as well as wrestling collectibles and autographed items spanning from sports, wrestling, and actors. If you happen to be in the Connecticut area and you want to check out where want to get directions to this wonderful store, as well as the list of events that they have going on, which this weekend I'll touch it more on an episode of Wrestling Prime. I might do Wrestling Prime tomorrow, so because I gotta bring up that the event that they have going on there. Demolition's gonna be there. Spoiler. So, you didn't hear that from me. You can check out their website at for the directions and the list of events they have going on. You can check them out at mjvideogamesandcollectibles.com. Also, this episode is also brought to you by the She Bean Brewing Company here in Connecticut, home of the Downright Up Left YB. Very awesome beer. I love it. You'll love it too. You can check out their website at shebeanbrewing.com. Yes, I did. I read it right. And you can follow them on the social apps, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Or you can download the Untapped app today. Why wouldn't you? You got it. Definitely worth doing that. See, even Jerry Rice is nodding in agreement. He is. He's not ready to be on TV yet because football season hasn't officially started yet. So we're just going to give out. He's going to give out his once football season officially starts. Not the exhibition. Sorry, Mark, but my buddy Mark. But we're going with the actual football season, and Jerry Rice is going to give out once that season starts. Jerry Rice is going to give out that prediction on who's going to be the top team to look out for this season, heading on to the Super Bowl. So yeah, that'll be coming up. I believe in a couple of weeks or so. I don't know, in 2 weeks or next week. I gotta look at the official schedule. So I gotta check that out. So yeah. So anyways, so we got a lot of Spider-Man stuff to talk about. one of which being the game that I'm literally pointing directly on on my left shoulder, and it's, you know, I got my directions. See, look at that. I'm like a spazzing out here. Anywho, so yeah, Spider-Man, Insomniac Games, got bought by Sony picked them up. It's about time. I after all this time, I actually thought that Sony, that Insomniac was, was already bought by Sony. I never really understood the concept of that, but nonetheless, this is very good news because, it's been a long time coming, and to be quite honest with you, it's about time. Because they've been making a lot of exclusives for Insomniac has been making a lot of exclusives for sorry about that. But Sony has been making a lot of Insomniac has been making a lot of exclusives for Sony for a long time now. And it really surprises me that Sony never picked them up after all this time. And they're lucky too, because what if Microsoft, what if Xbox picked up Insomniac Games? Think about it. It would have been really tough. We probably would have seen Spider-Man on the Xbox One or even on a future console. And yeah, I am lining up my left arm to Spidey with Spidey's left arm. Looks like I got a sleeve right. It looks like I got an arm sleeve right there, in a form of Spider-Man. I wanted to do that. I'm sorry. I'm like literally being cheesy right now, and I don't care. I'm trying to make this as fun as possible. But no, this is a good idea for Sony to do so. I don't have a problem with it. It's just the fact that they were kind of tardy. It took them a long time to actually do that, and I'm surprised why I'm surprised why now. I'm really surprised, and it's like, but I kind of feel that Microsoft kind of dropped the ball too, because they had all the opportunity in the world. They had all the opportunity in the world to pick up Insomniac Games, because Microsoft has a huge history of grabbing all these game developers and everything and bringing them into the Microsoft family. So I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. And same thing with Nintendo. I'm surprised Nintendo didn't even pick them up, because they got some game developers as well too that they're picking up as well too. So it's kind of surprising as well in that area. But I don't know, but still I'm not mad about it, because of the fact that this is good, because after all, we got the great the best Insomniac title of Spider-Man. I mean, last year was pretty much dominant in a lot of categories, and really being in competition with Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, they were going back and forth on what was the better game. And like I said last year at the year-end wrap-up, both this game and Red Dead 2 was really tough to call, because it was really, really tough. But I went with Red Dead Redemption 2 being number 2 and number 1 being Spider-Man. Like I said, it was very close, because both of those games were awesome. Both of these games are awesome. I still play them. I still play Spider-Man. I still play Red Dead 2. I love them. I absolutely love them. It's so unique on these games, and but for Insomniac to be an exclusive only to Xbox, I mean exclusive only to Sony, to the PlayStation, that's good. That's good for them. That's actually good. And there's rumors flying around that that the sequel to Spider-Man is going to happen, pretty much basically being a title for the upcoming from the upcoming PlayStation 5, which if they make this out in time for it to be a launch title for the PlayStation 5, we would, if that becomes a launch title, if the sequel to Spider-Man becomes a launch title for the new PlayStation, I think a lot of people will be sold. It's like numbers would look good for them. They really would. After all, Sony is still the highest console right now. Still breaking out the numbers and everything. So it is good. So it is good for them on that level that they get that. Sony made a right move to do that. Better late than never, I guess. Is pretty much all I can say about that. And when it comes to that, and who knows, maybe we'll even see another Ratchet and Clank game come out, or whatever title that or anything else. I would love to see that, because they could do whatever they want now. Insomniac can do whatever they want now. They could bring in another Ratchet and Clank game. They can confirm the sequel to Spider-Man, because they left that so open in the with the after credits scene in the in the first game. Spoilers. I'm sorry, but yeah, there's they left it open for a sequel. So why not? So it is pretty interesting. It is pretty interesting. What does that mean now? Unfortunately, we won't see Spider-Man. We probably won't see Spider-Man in the Avengers game, if that game comes out as comes with a sequel as well too. I don't know. I don't even know if the Avengers game is even out yet. So I don't even know. But if it is, I'm definitely picking it up. I don't care. I really don't care, because that game does look, from what I've seen, it does look amazing. And but seriously, you have a great game of Spider-Man, and I don't see why you can't share that. You won't be able to share that with the Avengers if they decide to make a sequel. It's led to be seen that maybe somewhere down the line, Sony will probably buy Square Enix as well too, because Square Enix makes a lot of has been making a lot of games for Sony as well too, for the PlayStation. With the going back since the the early back when PlayStation 1 was a thing, the first PlayStation console. So with the Final Fantasy series. So yeah, I think that'll be a good grab for them, to do that, so that finally we can get that we can finally get that crossover with Spider-Man and the Avengers, so that it can all be one big exclusive. So it's led to be seen. So that'll be good. That'll be a good idea too. But you can play Spider-Man in the Ultimate Alliance game, Ultimate Alliance 3 for the Switch. So that right there is actually pretty cool. That really is. So speaking of Spider-Man, because I brought up Spider-Man a lot, and Why not? Because we have them right there. Some interesting news also came about at the same time as Sony buying Insomniac Games. It looks like Sony and Disney can't reach a deal with Spider-Man. And so this is a very serious discussion. And we need to talk about it. We definitely because a couple of days ago Spider-Man reportedly out of the MCU after negotiations stall between Disney and Sony. So according to an exclusive report by The Deadline, no further Spider-Man movies will be produced by Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige because Disney and Sony Pictures failed to reach a co-financing agreement. Sony Studios later released a statement saying, "We are disappointed but respect Disney's decision not to have him continue as lead producer of our next live-action Spider-Man film." Ooh. So basically this goes with Kevin Feige. So let's continue with the story from The Deadline. And so Sony Pictures spent much of the other day trying to spin Deadline about the prospective loss of Kevin Feige from future Spider-Man films. First, the studio downplayed the idea he might be leaving. Then insiders pinned his exit on added responsibilities from the Fox acquisition of the X-Men franchise, though they declined to make a statement. All this was reflected as factors in Deadline's break of an important and widely regurgitated story, but sources maintain that Feige's exit was about money. It was about Disney seeking the 50-50 co-fi stake. Sources said the original Disney was asked was more reasonable, as the price for Marvel and Feige's continued guiding hand that resulted in the delivery of Sony's biggest grossing film ever. Sony declined to meet those terms or even counter with anything worth considering. It was an aggressive stance by Disney, which already owns the merchandise on Spider-Man, and a tough nut for Sony to swallow, giving up half of its most valuable franchise. But these talks had been going on for some time. Had Sony agreed to Disney's ask, Marvel and Feige would not have withdrawn from the Spider-Man films, sources said. So it's all about money, which money, as we all know, is the root of all evil. So this proposes a very serious problem. And so it's basically just money money negotiation issues, and really, I don't want to see, with the numbers dating all the way back to 2016, Civil War, going back to Civil War, when Sony allowed the MCU to bring, Disney and the MCU to bring Spider-Man into the MCU was perfect. It was like a dream come true, and we've seen the reaction videos on social media. When the reaction videos went viral all over the place on viral on YouTube alone. The reactions were astounding. And Civil War, and since Civil War, numbers showing with Spider-Man went up and up and up and up. And there is some truth, there is truth to that, because just recently Endgame became the number one movie in the world, beating Avatar, beating James Cameron's Avatar as the best-selling movie of all time. Number one in the box office, number one worldwide, and now it's the number one movie in history. It beat James Cameron's Avatar. And not only that, with Spider-Man, made huge numbers in the box office. Huge numbers. Between both Disney, between Disney, Marvel Studios, and Sony. All three companies were able to cash in on the success of Spider-Man Far From Home. This was amazing. This was amazing. This is amazing. And so why can't we still have that? We need, since Spider-Man was introduced into the MCU, he was phenomenal. The appearance in Civil War, audience, even on opening night, when Civil War was in theaters, I went to go see it with a friend of mine. This movie, like, everybody went nuts. Everybody was clapping. Soon, when we saw the trailer, everybody went nuts. But in the actual film itself, everybody went nuts because we saw Spider-Man. This is awesome. This was really, really awesome because we finally get to see Spider-Man in the MCU, and it worked. It absolutely worked. And then came its predecessor. Then it came its predecessor, Homecoming, Spider-Man: Homecoming, awesome movie. One of my personal favorites. Coming from this, and it was awesome. Love the movie, love the characters that played in it, and I'm looking forward to see what happens next. Then came the Infinity War and Endgame. We all know what happened there. We all know Infinity War, when he disintegrated, when he was turned to dust, we all cried. We literally cried. I cried. I cried when I saw it. I literally did. Then, when he came back, we cried even more with in Endgame, because he came back. We loved it. It looked, he was phenomenal. Spider-Man was phenomenal in that film. Far From Home, I haven't seen it, but the numbers were phenomenal. They were phenomenal. You can't beat those numbers. You really can't. So Spider-Man in the MCU has been making tons and tons of money, and for that to not happen now, I don't know. It's led to be seen. Isn't like what's going to happen next, and luckily I have a solution. 5 solutions to be exact. On what could happen to Spider-Man. These are my top 5 things that could happen, that could possibly happen to keep Spider-Man in the MCU. And I'm not doing the old, that whole thing where I push the envelope and everything like that, primarily because of the fact I need a new envelope. But that's a different story altogether. But I'm actually being serious for a moment here, because Spider-Man in the MCU was awesome. Spider-Man in the MCU is making tons of money, and we need that to continue. I know there's two more movies in the Spider-Man universe that they can do. And so that happened because Tom Holland is slated to be doing 2 more Spider-Man movies. I don't know if there's going to be any more Avenger movies. I don't know, but as far as oh, excuse me. As far as damn, what was I going to say? As far as damn, I totally forgot. I had it and I dropped the ball. But it could it can happen, but but I have 5 good choices of what they can do. One of them, I seriously doubt that would happen, but I had to put something down. Excuse me. Or I didn't sneeze on my cards here. So I'm not gonna do the whole gimmick that I always do, like whenever I do this top 5 is like that. I'm not doing that tonight. Nope, sorry, I'm being serious. Because this is Spider-Man we're talking about here, and we need to be serious for a moment, because this is serious. This is very serious news. And we all love Spider-Man, and we don't want to see him leave the MCU. We really don't, because ever since he came into the to our lives, and ever since he came into our lives in Civil War, it was amazing. It was, we loved it. We absolutely loved it. And it's making, and with that introduction, it would mean a lot. It would mean a lot for him to be still there, and possibly work out some sort of agreement. So I came up with 5 of them, and I'm throwing the 5th one away because it literally seems ridiculous, and I'm pretty much using DC logic here, which it could work, but I don't think it will, and it's going to be way off if I do. Throwing it at number 5, reboot the MCU. That's the only card I'm throwing. That's the only card I'm throwing, because I had to put, like I said, I had to put something out there because I don't think whatsoever rebooting the MCU will ever happen, because think about how much it meant to a lot of people with the in the MCU, from Iron Man all the way up to Endgame. It was by far the best, and I know the MCU is still going to continue on even after Endgame. I don't need to spoil anything. We all saw it, because the numbers speak for themselves. Speaks for itself. And so rebooting the MCU without Spider-Man in it might work, but then again, it might not. Which brings me to number 4, which could be a very possible idea, since it hasn't happened with Sony. It could possibly happen with this one. Introduce Miles Morales into the MCU. Now that's a good prediction. Marvel can bring in Miles Morales into the MCU, like pretty much basically, with Tom Holland Spider-Man passing him off in some fashion. We'll get to that later. We'll get to that in just a bit. But which segues into number 3 actually. But introducing Miles Morales in some sort of fashion into the MCU. Because so far, Sony has not, on record, and I'm not including the animated Miles Morales in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I'm not including that, because that's not canon to the MCU. Okay, so I'm thinking more towards the live action, a live action Miles Morales into the MCU, so that they can open up Secret Wars. You know I'm right about that. So, which leads me to number 3, and this is kind of dark what they can do. Kill off Peter Parker in the MCU, which would lead to the introduction of Miles Morales. It could happen, because think about it. It would be a great way to pass the torch onto Miles Morales, and then we don't have to focus on Peter Parker anymore, because we pretty much had 3 different franchises. We had 3 different Spider-Man franchises, all centered towards Peter Parker in a live-action Spider-Man. We've had the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. We've had the Amazing Spider-Man movies with 1 and 2. And then, of course, the MCU Spider-Man. So, and as I said, there's 2 more Spider-Man films left in the MCU with Peter Parker. So what they can do is that they can throw maybe in this this next one, they in that last Spider-Man film, we be able to pass that torch onto Miles Morales. That way, Miles Morales can be in the MCU, and we don't have to worry about Peter Parker. We can throw in, in this way here, everybody wins. So at least there's a Spider-Man. At least there will be a Spider-Man in there, a live-action Spider-Man somewhere in there that's not centered around Peter Parker, and they can throw that in there. You see what I'm saying? So, because pre MCU, it's been centered around Peter Parker. Post MCU, after the last two films of Spider-Man is made with Peter Parker, that's it. Time to move on to Miles Morales, and I would be okay with that. And I'm sure a lot of young Spider-Man fans who loves Miles Morales needs to get that introduction into there, because then that can happen. Because then we can make, this way there'd be two different Spider-Man. There'll be two different Spider-Man verses, one not in the MCU, done exclusively by Sony, and then another one for the MCU that's done by by Marvel Studios and Disney. So that can happen, and I would be okay with that. And then somewhere later down the road, if they decide to do if there's a crossover with, Sony Spider-Man, and do that and do a live action Into the Spider-Verse, I would be okay with that. I would have no problem with that whatsoever. So, in this way here, everybody wins, and Sony would have their blessing. They really would, because right now, the only introduction of Miles Morales on the big screen was animated. So, and look what happened there. We got Miles Morales. We got the Into the Spider-Verse as the best animated movie, beating out a lot of Disney films that were nominated for Oscars at that same time. So, yeah. Think about that. One Sony animation film beat all the Disney animated films that were nominated for an Oscar this past Oscars. How cool is that? It really is. That really is amazing. And I know I've been saying amazing a lot, because you know what? Hey, it's Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. In quotes of Stan Lee, enough said. On to number 2. And this one's a possibility that could happen. Disney and Marvel rent Spider-Man for the MCU, and Sony gets a huge percentage of its box office sales, which is something that I said, but instead of meeting somewhere down the middle, because we know Disney's making tons of money, why not give Sony a little bit more? Why not? I think that that'll be a good idea. If the numbers that they want were just a little bit higher than going 50-50 on this, so that this way here Sony's making is making a lot of money just by the MCU just letting them borrow out the Peter Parker, letting them borrow the Spider-Man moniker. Again, I would be okay. I would be okay with that if that happened. So the negotiations are still still being talked and everything. Because we want Spider-Man to stay in the MCU for as long as he can. And like I said, we know there's 2 more Spider-Man films on the way in the MCU. So why not share that? Why not be generous? Let Marvel and Disney be generous and give them a little, give them a bonus incentive on what they can do. They can make that happen. We've seen with Far From Home how much numbers it made. They can do that. They can literally do that. So why not? I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I literally don't have a problem with that. So, if they rent out Spider-Man for these last 2 movies, and in the MCU. They can go ahead and do that, and they can give them the money, give them money and everything, instead of being 50-50, maybe do 75-25, and with only Disney getting 25% of the 25% of the sales. I think that sounds fair. So that Sony gets the other 75. Why not? I wouldn't have a problem with that, as long as they say, hey, 25% Disney and Marvel get 25% of the cut, while Marvel Studios gets 25% of the cut, while Sony gets 75. That's a win-win right there. I mean, that's like perfect right there. We can make that happen. They can make that happen. However, this could come right out of left field. And this is coming up at number 1. And this one's a doozy. But it could happen. It could happen. Because remember, these negotiations are not finished yet. Nothing has been finalized yet. So, right now, Spider-Man is hanging on a web right now. Hanging on his own web right now. So, we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. We don't know. A lot of people are speculating that that Spider-Man's done in the MCU. I don't think so. Because I think Disney has one more trick up its sleeve. And Mickey's going to be using his wizardry from Fantasia to make this happen. And there's only one thing that I can think of, and it's at number 1. Too bad we don't have advertisements on here, because it would have been perfect to put an advertisement right there on this very spot. Because I could say, number 1, when we come back, and keep that suspense going, and have all you get all pissed off and like, oh, come on, Tom Dog, what the hell? I'm sorry, that sort of thing. But here we go. Coming in at number 1, and this could be a doozy. I mean, it really could. And I know I'm stalling. Because I can already tell that you're already, like, screaming at the screen, saying, Tom Dog, what are you doing? Why are you stalling? Just say it already, god damn it. Okay. Alright, the time for stalling. I'm only delaying the inevitable, I know. So here it is, number 1. Disney buys Sony and all of its properties. How's that for a prediction? But the price that comes with this, and I predicted it in a tweet, and I included that prediction in a tweet to save Spider-Man. That the price tag for Sony is a lot more. I mean, a hell of a lot more than what Disney bought 20th Century Fox. You see. Because think about it. Think about this, folks. You have a multi-million dollar company in Sony. You have Disney, which is now in the billions, thanks to Marvel thanks to Marvel Studios alone. Now I'm gonna look up how much Disney bought Sony. I mean, how much Disney bought hold on. Okay, so how much did Disney pay for Fox? So, Disney has officially upped its offer for the purchase of 21st Century Fox. This information came up. Now this information came in June. So, and this coming from The Verge. So this was back in June, June 20th of last year. Disney has upped its offer for the purchase of 21st Century Fox. It is now offering to purchase the entertainment giant's film and TV assets at a price of $38 per share, or roughly $71.3 billion, which is a drastic increase from the company's original $52 billion deal that valued Fox at $28 per share. So, yeah, $71.3 billion that Disney bought for Fox and all of its properties. That's amazing. That's a huge price tag. To be honest with you, that is a really huge price tag. $71.3 billion. That's amazing. Think about how much Disney can buy Sony. I mean, we can look at hundreds of billions, in the 100 billions. Think about that. Could that happen? My sources say yes. Think about it. You put $100 billion price tag on Sony just for Spider-Man to stay in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and not only that, acquire some other intellectual properties that Sony own, including the video game market. Think about that. Sony, not only would Disney buy Sony and its movies and everything, but not only that, Disney will be getting into the video game industry. And I'm not talking about the Disney well, didn't Disney do that with the Disney gaming studios? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the PlayStation 4. I'm talking about the PlayStation console. Think about the PlayStation console. We got the PlayStation 5 coming out, I believe so, next year. either next year or the year before, or either in 2020 or 2021. We don't know. Signs are pointing to next year and around the holiday season to compete with Project Scorpio. Think about that. Because Sony was bought by Disney, not only will Sony's movie franchises be included with this deal, the PlayStation console, PlayStation exclusive that are only exclusive to the PlayStation, meaning Spider-Man, Insomniac Games, Sony, Qbert is a Sony property. He's already a Disney character in the Wreck-It Ralph movies. Adam Sandler's Happy Madison Productions, Sony affiliates. They did one Disney film under the Happy Madison moniker, and that was Bedtime Stories. That's a win-win right there. That's a win-win. They already got currently, Spider-Man's still in the MCU, but this can confirm it. Think about that. We can have God of War. Owned by Disney. We can have the Uncharted series owned by Disney. We can have Ratchet and Clank. They can come back as Disney characters. They could be perfect mascots for Disney, to represent Disney, or Qbert for that matter. We can have Qbert running around Disney World, as well as Ratchet and Clank. And not only that, Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is coming back in a 2020 film. The third Ghostbusters movie that's been long awaited for. And because Disney bought out Sony Pictures, they bought out Columbia, why not? Why not? You could bring in more stuff onto Disney Plus and on Hulu if you throw that on there. Nobody thought of that, did they? So why not? Why not have that? Let's have that. Disney, throw $100 billion right there in front of Sony's eyes and say, listen, we want to buy you. We want to buy you. Think about it. A lot of Sony hardware, the televisions owned by Disney, Walkmans, there's still Walkmans being made, the Discmen, the console, the computers owned by Disney, the PlayStation game, the games that are just exclusive only to PlayStation, that you can't play on Xbox, that you can't play on the Switch, all owned by Disney. Think about that. Think about that. Nobody thought of that until now. Nobody thought of that idea. Unless everyone's going to say, that'll never happen. Never say never. Because it could happen. It could happen. It could happen. So who knows? Who knows what Disney has up their sleeve? Because it can happen. It literally can happen. And on that note, that's pretty much all the time I have for today. Thank you all so much for this, for allowing me to be in your home this week to talk about Spider-Man, to talk about Sony, to talk about Insomniac Games. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at TomDog247. And if you missed any of tonight's episode, shame on you. I'm kidding. But if you did miss any of tonight's episode, you can check it out as soon as I turn off the camera. Thumbs up the video if you like it. Comment down below what you think will happen to Spider-Man in the MCU. What do you think? What do you think? What's your prediction? I'm very interested to hear. I'm really, really interested to hear what you have to say. I'm actually more interested in your predictions than mine, to be honest with you. And I really appreciate if to bring up that your hypothesis on this, your theory on this. So comment down below. I would like to hear what you have to say about this whole Spider-Man issue. And ringy-dingy that bell so you can stay notified on what I'm going to be doing next. And also, more importantly, more than anything in the world, face hug that subscribe button. We will see you again here next week to wrap up Tom Dog Days of Summer. So, this has been one of my favorite episodes. This has. So, I hope everyone tunes in as well too. Not just live, but also, you know, on your leisure. So, but that number one prediction right there is one that I'm really cherished about because it could happen. So, but anyways, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Until then, this is Tom Dog saying take care. So long. Peace.